Hi, it's me, your boyfriend slash girlfriend slash stay friends, favorite content creator. And I feel like the lighting is weird today, but that'll be fixed soon. Anyways, do you guys remember a YouTuber by the name of Crowbcat? If you don't know who they are, Crowbcat is was a content creator that specialized in doing comparison YouTube videos. And by that, I mean he would take literally either footage from two opposing games or two games within the same series, or a preview build and the final version build, and he would present them without commentary, though the video, the way it was structured, was very clear that he was always sort of shitting on the final product and versus the initial product, or shitting on the more recent version of a game. And I used to watch his stuff. I used to watch his stuff, and I was one of those people who were like, damn, these game developers really dropped the ball. I remember particularly it was the Ubisoft Watch Dogs demo. And while yes, I do understand that things change between a trailer and the final product, like I said, I still was watching those videos going, man, Ubisoft lied to us, they tricked us. But as I became more educated on the subject matter, I realized that a lot of the stuff that Ubisoft, for example, showed in that footage probably couldn't run well on like the hardware of that time, right? Not everyone have access to like top of the line graphics cards or these crazy CPUs. So I understand why those things might have changed. And I bring this up now because I feel like Crowbcat's influence was a overall negative, and holy shit am I tired of seeing this. There is someone out there now who is trying to do that by comparing Avowed to Oblivion. And the whole point of it is to show how like the physics in Oblivion is way better than that of, Avowed. And Avowed is a newer game that also, unfortunately, because it's a newer game, is once again caught up in this culture war bullshit. And they're trying to show that, man, this game that people like and cost lots of money, it took forever to come out. It can't compare to a game that came out 19 years ago. And to that, I say, what are you doing? Like, seriously, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? This cannot bring you joy. I know that people are trying to shit on Avowed because it's woke. And their definition of woke is just, I don't know, characters can be gay or whatever, or they can't jerk off to it. But doing this reminds me of that old saying, comparison is the theft of joy. And you motherfuckers have been robbed blind. Only someone who is miserable would do something like this. Because let's really get down to the brass tacks of it all, right? No one gives a shit about this. No one gives a shit that a game 19 years ago had better, physics than the current game now. Because that's not the game they were playing, right? Like, if this was, let's say, Half-Life, then sure. And let's say this is Half-Life 3 and they're comparing it to Half-Life 2, and Half-Life 3 has less interactivity and the physics aren't as good. Well, that's important because it's a Half-Life game. There's a basically open like sandbox physics fucking puzzle simulators, right? You need good physics for the games to work. That was one of the draws of the game. But this isn't it. This is a game in a fantasy world where you're playing first person, you have magic. I don't think people are going to be that pressed if, the flames don't interact with the grass and burn everything down, or if you shoot an arrow in a tree and it doesn't stick there. Like, that's not really what people are going after. I know people will try to say, well, it's immersion breaking. I'm going to call you on that, though. I think it's bullshit. I don't think it's a breaking your immersion. What I think is you're trying to find any and everything you can to nitpick on this game because, again, of the aforementioned culture war. And this game was supposed to be a massive flop, according to, let's just say, a non-journalist. And it's not. By any metric, it's not a massive flop. It is one of the top sellers on Steam. It's getting pretty good reviews. It's doing just fine. But they can't have that. So they have to try to tear it down in some way. Which honestly kind of gives a lot of credence to the video I just uploaded yesterday talking about people lack empathy and being happy when things fail and wanting things to fail and fail spectacularly. doing a comparison like this makes no sense. Imagine if I was like, what's this game called? Elden Ring? Oh, bro, look at that. You can't even swim in this water. Oh, but this game called Grand Theft Auto San Andreas that came out 20 years ago, you could swim in the water and you could get better at it. Clearly, this Elden Ring is a shit game. Like, you would get me committed, right? It's like, oh, wow. And this Zelda game, you couldn't even jump, but look at X-Blades. In X-Blades, you could jump in everything. Clearly, X-Blades is a superior game because we only focus on one mechanic in games to make sure if they're good or not. You remember the first Descendant? Remember how they were talking about how great that game was going to be because they could like see jiggling titties and stuff, and then like people played it and they're like, oh, this kind of blows because it's very grindy and it's not fun anymore, and they're not fixing any of the gameplay issues. Remember how a certain balding 56-year-old man was talking it up like it was the greatest game ever, and then just admitted that he actually didn't like the game, but they really nailed the waifus? It's almost as if the gameplay overall was more important. It's almost as if just one thing does not a game make. There are multiple things in a game that a game needs to have in order to be engaging, entertaining, keep the player base activated, right? And it's not just look at the hot women. Because if you want to do that, you are on the internet, there are sites you can go to. But when you have to go and do these wild comparisons, it truly doesn't make any sense. Like, again, what are you really trying to prove here? Because to me, it shows a complete lack of game design understanding and a complete disrespect for developers. I've seen way too many gamers talking shit like they know anything, making assumptions like, oh, well, they must not have qualified developers because how come this game, Hydrophobia, is a whole thing that's built around, water physics and would have probably pretty good water physics. Why can this game do that? But Star Wars Outlaws, a game that's much, much bigger in scope, it has more things happening and require more computational power, and wouldn't really focus on having advanced water physics, especially because it's not a water-based game. Why don't they have the same physics? Ah, man, it's because it's a bad game. These developers don't know how to do anything. Like, what is that? Avowed is a fine game. Oblivion has its problems, also well-loved, fine game. The two can exist. But when you guys try to make these comparisons, you're not doing what you think you're doing. Because once again, what you think you're doing is trying to highlight how games in the past used to be so much better and developers took more time and they were more skilled, and now games are all slopping, yada, 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 yada. Which, if that was the case, shut the fuck up and just play old games. Like, I don't know why that's never an option. You always have the option to shut the fuck up and play old games. There are so many games you can get on the computer through emulation or backwards compatibility, or, go through the online stores and just play those games and shut the fuck up. But you guys refuse to do that, and you try to make it everyone else's problem. There is no validity to making comparison videos of completely different games from different developers. It doesn't make any sense. If it's not the same game in the series, what are you comparing? Again, this is like if I was to compare like Breath of the Wild to Horizon Forbidden West. Just because they're both open world games you can climb, they're doing different things. A more apt comparison would be comparing Horizon Forbidden West and Horizon Zero Dawn, because Forbidden West is the sequel to Zero Dawn. So you can compare where they improved or where they, didn't improve on, where they regressed. That's fine. That's a critique to point out, how there might have been certain technological advancements, but they might have lost like something along the way, right? You can even compare a remaster to the original, right? That's fine. But to compare like Dark Souls to Concord because you hate Concord, but Dark Souls also lets you create characters and they look way better than the ones in Concord. It's like, you see what I mean? Like, it doesn't do anything. It just makes you look petty and small. Stop doing this shit. Please Please start being just normal people about stuff. If you don't like a game, don't play it. Or hell, play it, and if you want to make a rant video how much you hated the game, go nuts. But if you haven't even fucking played the game, don't do this. Don't make comparison videos. Don't do any of that shit, because you don't care about the actual game. You just care about perpetuating a culture war, and a dumbass agenda. You're not saving video games. If anything, you're making it so we'll probably have less transparency between developers and gamers, because they can see how you guys act. And personally, as someone who is a consumer of the games and appreciator of art, I would never want to interact with you motherfuckers. Like, if I was on that side, I would never want to talk to you guys. Because holy shit, I mean, look at this. It's this, and it's the people who were going through like the Grand Theft Auto trailer and trying to find out all the errors in it. Those are the people I think have no lives and are the most miserable people on the planet. Please stop doing this. It does nothing positive.